I am joined by Robert Griffin III, James Whitefield, Yates Meanekeims. All right, so first play we're going to look at, 2nd and 2, one of the Patriots' first offensive plays.
What's going on, everyone? Mike Kadlick, Taylor Kyles here, back with another episode of the Patriots Daily podcast, powered by Prize Picks, powered by Game Time, and powered by another Patriots loss, 24-21, a close one, as you saw last night, that puts them now at 3-12 on the 2024 season. If you watched Patriots postgame, we did our rapid reaction last night. No notes, no film, no stats to back it up, so that's why we're coming back to you again on this Monday afternoon to take you through it. A little bit of added context, some quotes from players, and really what went wrong ultimately in the Patriots loss. So before we get into all of it, Taylor, before we kind of get into the nitty-gritty, I know we're going to talk about turnovers, run defense, a little bit of Drake May here, and then the really stout, solid performance from the Patriots pass defense against Josh Allen, at least through the air. But overall, overarching thoughts from you now that we're, coming up on 24 hours post-game, where you're at with this Patriots performance and really this Patriots team as, now we sit here and, almost Christmas Eve.
I mean, still no controversial comments from Gerard Mayo. That's a very nice start. So well done. You can even
a post-game press conference last night, a day after press conference this morning, a radio hit with Greg Hill, and nothing to talk about. We're on a good track right now, Gerard Mayo. Good. This is a good Christmas present for me and Taylor.
Honestly, I would say if they won, it would have been like the perfect turnaround week. But actually, because they lost, we get to see Gerard following that loss, how he feels. And I think a lot of the reason we haven't really seen him step on his toes or anything when he's talking or put his foot in his mouth is because I think his sentiment after this game was much different than it was after the Cardinals game or even the Colts game, where those were kind of different losses where the Colts obviously was tough, but it felt like a bit of a collapse from the defense. And especially the offense as well, obviously didn't do what it needed to do. But there were a lot of holes, and that was a game that you felt like they really should have won. The Cardinals, I would say, was in a similar category where it was a winnable game, and you just absolutely lay an egg. And get blown out is tough to say because if you look at the final score, it wasn't really a blowout, but they were never really in control of that game. Right. It felt like anytime they made progress to maybe get back in late, then they obviously let up the 2 touchdowns later in the game. So those were different situations. The Bills were a game that everybody thought you were going to get blown out. Now, I'm sure internally they thought they had a good chance as long as they tightened things up. And we mentioned that too, that they did have a chance if they were fundamentally sound and if they didn't create negative plays and shoot themselves in the foot on offense, but they hadn't done that consistently in any recent games. So that wasn't something that we could expect of them. Now, we did see a lot of improvement. The run defense was honestly a little bit better than I thought, but also that was because there was such a small sample size of it, and the bad was still pretty bad. Offensively, I was a little less impressed with Drake May's day. Honestly, I thought this was statistically, it was his worst game since the Dolphins. If you look at he was more aggressive, but also obviously the efficiency kind of shot down. And then even looking at the tape, I think you could really see there were some misses. We'll highlight a lot of those, but really, we're going to go into the blitz because the Bills blitzed Drake May a ton more than he'd ever been blitzed in the NFL before. But even when he wasn't blitzed, mostly was good. He got the ball out on time, made the right reads. But there were also those 2 kind of weird misses on out routes to Hunter Henry, one in the red area, one on 3rd down where they ultimately have to pump the ball. And then there was another one, obviously, to Kayshon Boutte. He was talking about the dig where he threw it in the dirt. Weird miss. Then, also in the game, he's rolling out and throws one across his body and completes it. So it's like, all right, you know what? I guess let's kind of cancel out. You like both, but, I'm not going to be too stressed about that. But it wasn't the best day from the offense either. But I guess I came away still optimistic, thinking this was. But yesterday we were because it wasn't the disaster we thought it was going to be. It was something where you hang your hat on a few things. And to wrap it all up again, Gerard Mayo said he's proud of his guys. I think that he knew that they came out. Even Josh Allen said, that's not a team that is what the record says they are. They're very competitive. Brought up the close games, obviously. But it did seem like there was a genuine level of respect from Josh Allen. A lot of that was due to the coverage and all the issues they gave him. So, yeah, I mean, obviously far from a perfect game. Plenty of things where you're saying, all right, if I want to get on this Gerard Mayo bandwagon, I see it. Maybe you just get some more talent, some more help on the coaching staff, and the outlook looks a lot better. But,
it's
okay. It was okay.
It's right. I'm with you. I think it almost, I hate looking at it this way, but it's kind of more promising that it feels like the reason they lost was almost purely on execution and not necessarily coaching, where I feel like there was a mix of that over the last few weeks where there was a lot of things you could point to on the coaching side. It was like, well, why did this happen? Is it a coaching issue? Where yesterday, like, it really felt like execution. Not that that's any better, but it almost took a little bit of like, okay, Gerard Mayo he at least got these guys to play. There were some question marks, obviously the punt that we talked about last night and what have you, and some different things of that nature. But it was really, 2, 3, 4 drives in the second half offensively, and then a couple plays defensively that really ended up allowing them to not win this game and obviously lose 24-21 final score by 3. But again, a little bit better coaching wise. They continue to get knocked down and get right back up. And there's now been 3 pretty pure examples of that, I would say. They lose to the Jets on that Thursday night game. They come back fighting the following week. They go to Jacksonville and they get spanked. Mayo calls them soft and they rebound. And then this one, it felt like this was, a next time where they come off the bye and it was a disaster out in Arizona. And then they lose yesterday. Don't get me wrong. There's no moral victories here, but yesterday felt kind of as close to a moral victory as you can get, where you really fought against one of the best teams in the AFC. So that's kind of where we're at. So let's get into the game itself. And we'll start right off the bat with what Gerard Mayo said last night and kind of comparing this now to Bill Belichickian, where he's doing better with the media, like we just mentioned. Last night, it just felt like he kept saying, I got to look at the film. Got to look at the film. Got to look at the film. I'm not going to answer anything right now.
I think that was smart.
It was smart. He didn't throw anybody under the bus because he was able to, say that. But then this morning, he comes back and says, I watched the film, and it's turnovers and it's run defense. And those were the two
He finally acknowledges the run defense is a problem. That was very nice.
Yeah. So he talks about the turnovers and he mentions the run defense. He says those were really the 2 reasons why we lost this game. He also talks about Antonio Gibson potentially taking over for Ramondre Stevenson as a starter because Ramondre continues to turn the football over. Says it's still a possibility. We're behind Ramondre. He does a lot of good things. Unfortunately, the ball is just on the ground too much. So long story short, 3 total turnovers. The interception. Just said the word turtle.
I like turtles.
3 total turnovers. 3 total. 1 interception. 1 fumble by May. 1 fumble by Ramondre. And they end up being the difference in the game. So, Taylor, take us through these turnovers a little bit more, what you saw, and just how – I don't even want to say how egregious they were, but let's talk about the turnovers and kind of see where those were at.
Yeah, so obviously, Antonio Gibson could take over as the lead back. Had one of his least effective games in a while, I will say that. A lot of that was because the run blocking wasn't very good at times, and he was getting just hammered when he was still in the backfield. This isn't really about the run blocking today. It's not one of the main storylines. We're going to focus on the turnovers. So first turnover of the game actually was from the first fumble was from Antonio Gibson. Tries to cut it back. Again, gets hit at the line of scrimmage. Unfortunately, gets stripped there. And this was an issue, I will say, for the Patriots for a while. And we'll see that towards the end of this compilation. They have fumbled in all but 2 of their games this entire season. Week 5 against Miami when they were home, and then week 7 in London against the Jaguars. And they've had multiple turnovers in 3 straight games. Multiple fumbles in 3 straight games. They've been flirting with disaster, and it's a big reason that Alex Van Pelt's been saying, ball security. I don't really think it was so much the interceptions from Drake May. I think he understands, and Gerard Mayo's acknowledged when asked about Drake May's turnovers. A lot of these are just different situations. I know he said that the throw was a bad play by Drake May or a bad throw, but I also think that's why Alex Van Pelt is the offensive head coach, because I think that's the second time that I've disagreed with how Mayo kind of saw what was happening and think it's because he comes from a defensive mindset where there's really not an excuse versus May, who's saying, no, I thought the route was going to turn out differently. But again, it's not really the interceptions that are worrisome turnover-wise. It's more of these fumbles. They happen every single week. Mm-hmm. This was the one for Ramondre Stevenson that ultimately ended up costing him when he puts it on the ground, takes the handoff, has 2 hands on the ball, but still gets it punched out and ripped out. So one of the hands ends up coming off. Patriots can't recover, even though Ben Brown's right there. They lose that one, obviously. That's a big game changer. Now, the interception to Austin Hooper. This is another one where, I think that Drake May compared it to the Colts touchdown, where it was a little bit flatter on the out-breaking route. He just puts it up for Austin Hooper, gets the touchdown. This is another man-covered situation where May thought he was going to get the same thing, but you can see once Hooper starts breaking his route, Kendrick Bourne is in the exact same area. And I think that Bourne slows up on the play because he wants to try to give Hooper a chance to get over top of him, knowing that if he keeps going straight, they're just going to end up running into each other. But because Kendrick Bourne slows up, one, he gets blown up completely, which Mayo said should have been a penalty. I think it was incidental contact because you can see it's Hooper's defender who runs into him because he's in chase mode. So it was kind of weird for Mayo. I don't think that should have been a flag. But even more still, because Drake May acknowledged he probably could have looked off the safety more. But if Hooper's body is in between him and the safety, better chance that it's at least broken up, worst case scenario, if not caught. But because Hooper had to angle over top of Kendrick Bourne instead of just being able to break normally, I think if he had, he would have been closer to the pylon, like what Drake May thought. But when Drake May saw it, he was like, oh, maybe Hooper thought he was supposed to go to the back pylon. I don't think that's what happened. I think it's because they were in the same area. Just, I don't know what the explanation is for that, and I don't want to get on Kendrick Bourne if I don't know for sure. But this is like the second week in a row where receivers who are often like guilty of making mistakes end up in the same area as Austin Hooper. Typically, you'd say logically Hooper's the issue, but it seems like every time it's a young player or, again, one who's mistake prone. And as we know, every week it seems like Kendrick Bourne ends up apologizing because he was in the wrong place. Now we have obviously the swing screen where we have the fumble recovered for a touchdown, complete and utter disaster. Yes, you can absolutely critique the play calling and say you should not be going backwards when you're this close to your goal line because of exactly what happens on this play. But most frustrating for me, even more than the play call, was the execution. Because last night I said I thought this had the chance to be a big play because the safety to the screen side was rotating back. So they should have had a numbers advantage with basically Ramondre just having to make the safety miss. But instead, DeMontre Jacobs misses his cut block, which this is a play they ran against the Titans. He makes the cut block, but Drake throws behind Ramondre. Ramondre takes his eyes off the ball, loses it, and then ends up recovering, but he still loses 2 yards. Here, Drake, I think he puts it still in a good spot. Gerard Mayo said that the biggest issue was Jacobs missing the cut block, but also acknowledged that Ramondre probably should have run this a bit flatter, so it's not behind the line of scrimmage, and that's something that you brought up yesterday. Very good point. So it wasn't on Drake. It was more on Ramondre. Ramondre, this ball hits him in the hands, can't catch it, gets blown up again because he knows that there's an edge defender about to blow him up. May acknowledged it. Mayo, I think, acknowledged it. That's a tough position to be in, but this close to your end zone, my guy, I'm sorry, you got to take the big hit.
I know.
And then it just doesn't feel like there's quite enough hustle from the Patriots players either to recover it. That was pretty disappointing. And then we'll dive into this one later.
Notice too, sorry, at the end of that last clip, it kind of looks like some of the Bills didn't know if they should recover the ball.
Yeah, that was kind of weird. There's like a special teams play where sometimes guys are like, am I supposed to touch this or do I just let it go? I thought the same thing, but when you got two guys, there was the second one who was like, no, get on it. Like,
yeah.
That was kind of funny. But also, again, you'd like to see more hustle from the actual Patriots players. And then Drake May dropping his snap. I think maybe he just couldn't feel his hands or something. You can see he's trying to get a grip on the ball when it happens. And then as he's doing that, it kind of falls out of his hands. We'll break that down a little bit more later, but that was another play that was exacerbated by the fact that it looks like Mike Nwenu doesn't pick up a blitzer, and Jordan Phillips immediately splits Layden Robinson and Darian Lowe. Those guys get into the backfield, so May doesn't even have time to recover it. And again, this is not the first time. Last week, we had 2 fumbles because, according to Scott Peters, Ben Brown snapped it off with a towel on his butt. I didn't really see that, to be honest, both times. The towel was to the side, but whatever. Then, obviously, Demario Douglas, because Kendrick Bourne misses his block. He gets blown up last week. Another one of Ben Brown's fumbles ends up on the ground. And then the game before that, you also had multiple turnovers because Austin Hooper gets stripped by Zaire Franklin. And then you've got Ramondre Stevenson with yet another fumble. He now has 8 fumbles on the season, tied with Lamar Jackson for the most in the NFL. Unsustainable level of play from the Patriots. We obviously know they're not good enough to be turning the ball over once, much less 3 times. The interception, I feel like that's less a decision thing, more of an execution thing still. But refine the route spacing. That doesn't bother me quite as much because that's been such a consistent issue. I feel like it's just Kendrick Bourne, younger guys just missed so much time. Maybe that's still lingering at this part in the season. It's frustrating. I'm very curious to know how they feel about it internally, if it's something they think is actually fixable for the season or whether it's just something where it's like, hey, the mistakes get made and you correct them afterwards or what have you. But yeah, these turnovers, man, they can't keep happening if they want to win their next 2 games. I don't care if Josh Allen's playing in week 18 or not. It just is not a sustainable way of play, obviously.
100%. It's the one thing where now, look, I think Drake May is playing clearly much better football than Caleb Williams is right now in Chicago. But when you look at and this is a little bit of box score watching on my part because I have not watched a ton of Chicago Bears football. But the one thing I do know is that Caleb Williams hasn't thrown an interception since week 5 in 8 straight weeks. Now, their offense isn't as productive, and that may be just him being too protective of the football, right? And there's times where he's sped up, and so he just drops and doesn't put the football in harm's way. But on the flip side, May's now thrown an interception in 7 straight games. Again, not all of them are his fault. It is a little bit of box score watching, but you would like to see a happy medium here where he still plays as efficient as he's playing, but they're not putting the ball in harm's way as much. Now, again, that you broke it down. There's a little, Hooper gets cut off a bit. The ball gets underthrown there, and it's just nightmare on nightmare. But at some point, you're going to want to see them, not just May, but the entire offense, obviously Stevenson included, could be on the brink of losing his job here as the starter, at least in the short term, because you can't win football games that way. You lose the turnover battle like that. The only, I don't know if you were able to watch some of the 1 o'clock games yesterday, but the Commanders lost the turnover battle 5-1 against the Eagles and somehow still pulled it out. That doesn't happen. That's not how you win football games. Yeah. So outside of that, it's pretty remarkable to be able to win a game when you lose the turnover battle. The other piece, Taylor, that Gerard Mayo mentioned as a reason to lose the game was run defense. So let's talk about that. James Cook, 11 carries, 100 yards, averages 9.1 yards a pop. As a whole, the team, 28 carries, 172 yards, and 6.1 yards per attempt. Not good enough on either side. With James Cook in general, or from even a guy in Ty Johnson, who you mentioned before the game. He also gets 5 yards of carry in this one. They contain Josh Allen on the ground, but they still let everybody else run wild. So what happened? What are your thoughts on it? And I know you said that you weren't as down on it as you were last night, but tell me why.
Yeah, and really, it's more because of the volume. It just felt like it was just every single run. There were some runs they had that they were successfully able to contain the running backs, but it didn't happen nearly often enough, and that's the main point. Obviously, the big run is going to kind of change these stats, but it's not the first time the Patriots have given up this crazy long run. So when you look at these stats, it only goes so far when you're talking about James Cook's. I think it was 47, 46-yard run.
Yeah.
So one, we talked about it last night. For whatever reason, Joe Brady did not commit to the run game. Felt more like a Brian Daboll, not Kevin Stefanski. What's the Browns? A Kyle Dorsey kind of game where Ken Dorsey, sorry, where they just lean way too much on Josh Allen, despite the fact that run game's working. So it's the 6th fewest runs from running backs. I didn't even include Josh Allen in this, except for at the bottom where I just kind of talked about him separately. But when you only look at the running backs, they didn't get a ton of runs against, but yards per rush allowed, the 2nd most allowed. Also, yards after contact per rush, 2nd most. Both of those were only behind the Texans game against Joe Mixon. Yards before contact per rush, 4th most. Obviously, those two things combined are usually going to lead to one of your worst days overall, where not only were the Bills getting yards because their offense was blocking them well, and also I want to give credit to James Cook, who has outstanding vision, was able to manipulate some guys up front and create some of his own lanes for positive yardage. We talked about that in other weeks, like Tony Pollard, Tank Bigsby, James Conner. Like those guys are just very good at creating some of their own lanes. But also when you're not making tackles, that's going to be tough, especially when you have the highest missed tackles per rush rate in the entire season for the Patriots. So a disappointing performance just when you look at the stats, although Josh Allen held the 30 yards. That was the 2nd most for a quarterback against New England this season. The most was Anthony Richardson, but it wasn't the same thing where it felt like Allen was getting all the yards that he needed to whenever he needed to. I think they did a much better job keeping him under wraps. So kudos there, but didn't do a great job defending the running backs. And when I really looked at why, one, the front needs to be better, right? Then you're also saying, all right, it's Jeremiah Farms, right? It's Sione Takitaki. It's Christian Ellis. Like those guys are making mistakes. They're not supposed to be in these roles anyway, ideally. Takitaki is, but we talked about it. I just don't think he's in the shape that he wants to be. But the angles from the safeties were like egregiously bad, where one, Kyle Duggar has a chance to stop it for a minimal gain. He misses the tackle.
He was limping that entire play.
I'm sorry?
He was limping that entire play. It looked
And
like
it's why we've been saying, just shut the guy down. I will say, like, going downhill, if he can go in a straight line, he still blows guys up. He still is contributing in run defense. But when he's playing in space and has to move laterally, it's just ugly. And then you also add on top of that the fact that Marte Mapu just took a couple of horrible angles. One on the touchdown where we talked about me wanting him to be the free safety, right? I would love him in that DMAC role where he doesn't really have to go up against a lot of blockers, but he can just make plays in space. But when this happens, that's exactly why you don't play. Now, I will say, we'll get into it later, I thought Marte Mapu had a good game overall. Just some really glaring mistakes that you could not ignore or even glaze over. As much as I want to say this was like a breakout game for him, it wasn't because he made so many mistakes. So one, like he was late to recognize on one, take a bad angle on another. The Jalen Hawkins play was kind of tough because the run did get outside Christian Ellis. There was a huge hole that Jalen Hawkins was trying to fill, and then James Cook, speedy back, just bounced it outside, and really nobody could get to him. But I also was disappointed by some of the missed tackles. Like you had the one from Kyle Duggar, had this one from Alex Austin. Anthony Jennings had a chance to make a stop in the backfield, couldn't. Jeremiah Farms. I'm sorry, this is actually Eric Johnson. I mislabeled it, my bad. But he should have made a tackle in the backfield. It was kind of tough, but he also doesn't. And that was the main thing for me. It's the pursuit angles and the poor tackling, which have been issues for weeks. And it's gotten to the point where I just don't really know how much more we can expect from this run defense. Now, fundamentally, there are things that could absolutely be better. When you talk about Devon Gottschall, sometimes he gets blown out of his gap. Not a ton. I feel like it's just more as like a wear and tear thing maybe. But really more often than not, he's standing his ground. I just like to see him disengage more consistently. Jelani Tavai wasn't terrible, but it does feel like sometimes he's trying to overcompensate for the fact that he's not really a Juwan Bentley type. And then when you look at the front, you've just got so many guys who are supposed to be rotational players or role players who are now pretty much starters or have roles that are bigger than what they should have had. And when I looked it up, I wanted to see they have like 40 explosive runs allowed, which is almost double what they had through this point last season. So I'm thinking, okay, when's the last time they even gave up that many? Because we talked about a few years ago, the run defense had a ton of injuries and it just was not very good, or a ton of guys out. It was the COVID year, 2020, where Dante Hightower opted out, Patrick Chung opted out, and there were some other guys that they were missing up front. That led to guys like Shalik Calhoun, Adam Butler, Terez Hall, a rookie Anthony Jennings, who also played inside linebacker, and Juwan Bentley in his first year starting, having to be regular players for the defense. That was the year. I think they allowed one fewer explosive run through 16 weeks or 16 games than they have this season. So if you're looking for reasons, obviously coaching can improve. And another thing for the Patriots was because of the COVID year, it kind of impacted coaching because they didn't get their players as long. And, there was that whole hullabaloo. That was an issue. This year, you take hits because you don't have Bill Belichick, you don't have Steve Belichick, and obviously there are other guys up front that you had to replace because Mayo is now the head coach, no longer the linebackers coach. And Dante Hightower even acknowledged that he struggled early on as a linebackers coach and is still growing in the role. So the coaching deficit is obviously there, but also it is impossible to ignore the talent when you don't have Barmore, your best player up front, Bentley, your best player at linebacker, and then Peppers and Duggar are either not playing or significantly limited by lower body injuries. So I just think it is what it is at this point. We can still be disappointed in it, but I don't see this improving by the end of the season.
It does sort of. At this point, 3-12 injuries, Peppers, Duggar not playing, right? Like you said. I hate it, and I talked shit last night about Mayo waving the white flag with the punt, but like the run defense feels like a white flag where it's like, okay, you know what? It is. You tweeted it last night. It was exactly the way I felt. It is what it is at this point. Reset, recoup for next year. Hopefully things are better. Another year with whether it's a newer defense, a different defensive coach. If they get rid of Covington gets another year under his belt and kind of can fix things up with scheme wise. And then at the same time, you get your healthy players back. Juwan Bentley and the trickle effect that's going to hopefully cause should be significant. So we'll see what happens there. But again, not good enough yesterday again. And one of the reasons why the Patriots lose, Gerard Mayo even admits it. So we're going to move on to Drake May against the Blitz and talk about this good pass defense. But first, let's listen to our friends over at Prize Picks. Be right back. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. They now offer MasterCard as well for quick and easy deposits into your account this sports season. And they put their members first. All withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When your picks hit, you get your money in as little as 15 minutes. So join now, because this holiday season, Prize Picks is giving away 2 free picks in December, and they're also giving away $30+ million in rewards during Pickmas. Think James Cook will get more than 60 yards next week? Think Joe Burrow will pass for more than 1.5 touchdowns? Cook up your hot takes with your friends all season long on Prize Picks. And all you got to do is download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Man, that is so much easier than having to sit here reading that every time. Thank you, Amit. We appreciate it. But we are powered by Prize Picks. So again, if you're interested, head over there. Code CLNS gets you $50 when you play $5. Ton of I mentioned Pickmas in the read, but there's Pickmas picks where they're giving you some basically free squares, half yardage, etc. I know there's one on the NBA with Nikola Jokic, I believe. Nikola Jokic, more than half a point. You can get that on Christmas Day. So if you want to, sign up on Prize Picks today. All right, let's talk about the rest of this Patriots game. Taylor, we're going to save Drake May for last. We'll talk about our good friend Drake May towards the end. Let's keep it on the defense here, though. Another good thing, actually. The run defense was bad. The pass defense, solid. Josh Allen, you hold him to only 150. What?
There's a night and day difference.
Yeah, crazy, 100%. You hold Josh Allen to 154 yards in the air. He throws a touchdown. He also throws a costly interception, which did you
costly
see
for the Patriots?
Costly for the Patriots because Marte Mappa, what are you doing? But did you see Dan Orlovsky trying to defend Josh Allen today and saying that everyone's trying to say that it wasn't an interception, it was just an arm punt, and he even said that it was a good decision to throw the football. I get that at arm punt, right? It's third down, whatever, but somebody noted they were 7 yards from field goal range. It was 3rd and 16. But if you get 10 yards, then you set yourself up 4th and 6. You can kick 3 points. So to just chuck it in the air, and Orlovsky's really going on this Josh Allen MVP narrative type thing and goes on and does that whole thing. But not a great decision from him. A worse decision for Marte Mapu to try and take it out. But regardless, a lot of man coverage, a lot of solid coverage in the back end. Patriots defense, at least through the pass game, shines again. So, Taylor, take us through what you saw in this one from the Patriots secondary.
Yeah, also the whole arm punt thing, I was like, okay, but Marte Mapu was also back there by himself. And
right.
Yes, he did get tackled, but you don't know he's going to get tackled. And there was room. If that one guy had missed, he had space to actually get a return off. And yeah, I think it's kind of ridiculous.
I have to actually, if I can find it really
Go
quick.
ahead, yeah.
The NFL on CBS yesterday. First of all, they showed the graphic during the game of Drake May versus Josh Allen, and they did not put Josh Allen's interception on his stat line. It was like the end of the game, and there was just no interception there. And then this, I want to try and find the tweet. It was the NFL on CBS.
That is literal propaganda.
Yep. Okay. Here it is. Propaganda, Taylor. I'm going to share my screen. Share screen. NFL on CBS. Read the caption of this tweet.
Got it. Oh, sorry.
Oh, no. Go. You go.
Okay, I got it.
Josh Allen pins the Patriots inside the one with an arm punt. What is that?
You don't no one made you tweet this. That's crazy.
That is,
you literally just didn't need to say anything. That is wild.
That is MVP propaganda at its finest. To say that Josh Allen pinned them inside the one. Now, again, obviously they're joking here. They're playing it up, but crazy nonsense. Yeah. Anyway, Patriots pass defense solid. Taylor, tell us why.
You said it, not me. Anyway, I didn't say nothing. All right, so let's look at the stats. So, yeah, Patriots coverage was excellent. They played more man coverage than they had in almost any game this season. The only other time they played this many snaps of man coverage, it was 22. That was against Caleb Williams and the Bears back in Week 10. And when receivers were when defensive backs were targeted, especially lock down. Kyle Duggar did allow 4 straight completions, but he had some big hits on those as well. I think a few of them were screens. One was that 3rd and short where they decided to go cover 0. I don't know why the hell they did that. I hated the decision, but Duggar was actually pretty solid man coverage. Jonathan Jones back in the slot full time for the first time in a couple seasons. He locked down Khalil Shakir, who was a good slot receiver. Josh Allen mentioned how he was undercutting routes and stuff. That was really impressive. Gonzo targeted twice in man coverage. Didn't allow a completion. One of those was actually Marte Mapu's interception. The other one was a play where Amari Cooper tried to push off of him and like fully extended his arm. Gonzo, what's the rule? You pull, you push?
I pull.
Tried to extend. Gonzo was like, nope, come right back here. I'm not going anywhere, and then broke it up. So Gonzo obviously locked down. Christian Ellis did allow one 17-yard conversion, but he also broke up a pass when he was targeted deep downfield on a Josh Allen scramble. Really good awareness to realize the ball was coming. Like we said yesterday, instead of just keeping running and kind of panicking like we saw that Bills linebacker, he kind of looks behind him to see if he can find the ball, but then just puts his arms up and slows down a little bit to try to get a pickup. Really nice heads-up play there. Then Marte Mapu only targeted a couple of times when he was in man coverage, got himself some pass breakups, and now we will go to the tape. Now, like we said, Marte Mapu, especially as a run defender, had a lot of things that he needed to fix, all right? The angles and all that. Also the interception where he gets it, takes it out of the end zone. Kind of funny because Jonathan Jones is the only experienced defender here because around him are Christian Ellis, who's usually a special teamer, and then Isaiah Bolden, who barely plays defense. I saw last night was like, no one told him to get down. I'm like, yeah, because there was nobody around who probably had the awareness. Obviously, coaching is a part of that.
Right.
Inexperienced players who probably just aren't thinking about that. Then Jonathan Jones comes over and is like, wait, why did he do that? And then Marte throws the ball because he's pissed at himself for taking it out. So one thing I'll say about Marte Mapu, he cares a lot about his craft. And you might not really care about that. Why does it matter? When you have the ability to make the plays Marte does, and you care enough to try to get better and fix them, you still got to do it. And that's what we're waiting on. But every time he made a mistake, like he forced a fumble, got mad at himself, this kid cares. So
he's also someone who's known for his smarts as a football player. So I think when he makes a mistake like that, he's like, again, you see it on the film, he's pissed. He's like, what the F am I doing? Like, why did I do that? And he knows it instantly. Again, doesn't make it any better. But I heard everyone say that. Eve Gerard after the game was like, he knew immediately he effed up, basically, but still can't.
He's like, some things are better left unsaid. He was more disappointed than anybody else was. And, he was wearing the green dot. This is a very smart kid, a good communicator. I think there may be an element of there's a lot going on. And that doesn't necessarily excuse missed angles and things like that. But I do wonder if maybe next offseason, third year under his belt, knows whatever version of the playbook this is or whatever, can really just play faster and not look like he's thinking and making mistakes. But yeah, still in man coverage, like I've talked about, in that DMAC role, be rangy and be good in man coverage. He did that. The closing speed to get under the in-breaking route that he was targeted on to break that up. Also, a couple blitzes where he was able to get pressure, help Jeremiah Farms get a sack because he came unblocked on a slot blitz. There was another play where he got some pressure on Allen. I believe this is it. Rotates down late on a play action. Josh Allen tries to get outside the pocket, can't because of Marte. Really good call. Really good play also by Marte Mapu to force the incompletion and then punching the ball out to get a fumble. Now, they weren't able to recover, obviously, but still, several impressive plays from Marte Mapu in different ways show that, yes, he still has a lot of room to grow, but we've been talking about this kid has really good instincts. He attacks the ball. He's got good range. When the ball's in the air, he does a good job of tracking it and usually coming down with it when he's not contested. So, again, wasn't a perfect game, but a lot of good for Marte, who was a healthy scratch in the 2 games before. And then Jonathan Jones, another guy who's gotten a lot of crap this year. And a lot of it is because that Rams game was put in a very tough spot against one of the best receivers in football, against one of the best schemes in football. But in the slot, man, he looked excellent. He was undercutting those crossing routes where it forced Josh Allen to go elsewhere. They tried to create interference a few times with some of the rub concepts. There was one time where he did a great job passing off Khalil to Kyle Duggar and then becoming the middle field defender. I just love those man match coverages. When a defense is just on point like that, I think it looks really cool. And then obviously also getting targeted downfield, broke up the one pass to Khalil Shakir in the end zone. Also one play where he was beat, managed to recover. Not a great throw from Josh Allen, but still good recovery speed from Jonathan Jones to still be able to make a play on it. And obviously doesn't have the speed he used to, but was still more than fast enough to keep up with a speedy receiver like Khalil Shakir. So in man coverage, Patriots were absolutely excellent. They were pretty good also in zone. But another element I was impressed with was how they defended scrambles, not just against Josh Allen, who did get outside of Yannick Ngakoue a few times, but still, the coverage for the most part did not break down. They plastered very well. If you're not familiar with plaster, basically just means you know the quarterback's trying to extend the play. Just look at your man. Do not take your eyes off him. Glue your eyes to your coverage assignment and just make sure, even if the ball's in the air, you can make a play on it and don't get burned where you lose your assignment. And when that happened, the rush did a pretty good job making sure that Allen wasn't just running loosey-goosey. There was one conversion for Allen for an explosive run, another one where Mapu seemed like he got kind of confused and uncovered against tight end. But other than that, they did a really good job. And this was one of the things that scared me the most coming into this game. They've been good on scrambles recently, but Josh Allen's Josh Allen for a reason. But really, I was impressed by their effort there. Was also encouraging for next week when they play Justin Herbert, and obviously when they end up playing Josh Allen potentially again in Week 18.
Every time he ran to the sideline like that, you've seen it before where he runs to the sideline, he gets right there, he tiptoes, and he throws it across his body, and it's right in someone's breadbasket. Every time he got there yesterday, I was like, what's going to happen? Something's going to happen. They didn't let it happen. They played him really well. It was impressive stuff. Again, some moral, I don't want to call them moral victories, but they couldn't get the job done in the end, but there are
things
some
to hang your hat on. Things to hang your hat on, I'd say.
That's why you're the vocab guy. That's 100%. Couple things hanging your hat on. One of them is this pass defense. All right, let's get into Drake May here at the end. But before we do, another quick word from our friends over at Game Time. Here we go. It's the holiday season, and that means it is also the best time to watch and attend your favorite sports games, and you can do so right now with the Game Time app. Game Time is focused on togetherness this holiday season, and that means when you bring people together at live events, the experience is that much better, and it's the perfect holiday gift. They also have their new feature called Game Time Picks. It makes getting tickets to live events even easier. It filters out the fluff and shows you only the incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste your time searching through thousands of tickets. Game Time Picks, best feature. They also have all-in pricing. You toggle it on, and it shows you the exact price you're going to pay at checkout. No fees, no garbage, just the price right there on the app. They also have seat views. It gives you a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy your tickets, and they also have their lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets today with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it?
Game time.
Wow, he cut it like that.
I was like, wait, what's happening? Am I going to go?
when the ad ended, I was like, oh, man, we're not going to be able to do it anymore. Because when I sent them over this morning, I said Game Time because I had to. But I guess he cut it the right way. Good job, Amit. So
good stuff, Amit. That was awesome.
You got to wait a couple seconds for the mic to unmute so you can say your Game Time. But it's cut there. Anyway, Game Time app, you know it. Head over there, download it. You get $20 off. Obviously, terms apply. But right now, Chargers game this Saturday. Lowest price is $47 right now on the Game Time app. And if you want to go to the Bills game Week 18, $37. Try and match the Bills Mafia that was just up in Buffalo. Do the same thing next 2 Sundays from now. Patriots final game in Foxborough. So, all right, let's close it out with this, Taylor. Drake May versus the Blitz. Overall, 22 of 36, 261 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick for Drake May. But he was blitzed more than ever on Sunday against Buffalo. How did he do? What did he do against it? What was good? What was bad? Take us through number 10's performance.
Yep. So first, let's look at the numbies. So, like you said, he was blitzed more than he has been blitzed in any NFL game before. In response, he got the ball out faster than he has before, but he also went further downfield, which is pretty interesting. And we saw that, obviously. A lot of that was on the first drive where he made some very aggressive decisions, and they actually worked out. They were really fun to watch. Now, because he was going further downfield, partially because he was partially going downfield, his completion percentage was the lowest against the blitz that it's been in the game this season, and he had the second fewest yards per attempt. Now, there were a lot of different reasons for why he struggled. First, we'll get into what he did well. Going to break down these plays more in depth, but really in this one, just going to give you a general overview what Drake May did well and what he did poorly. Now, the highlights, like I said, the opening drive where he's getting heated up. First of all, the protection was pretty good for the most part, picking up the blitz. There were some breakdowns, but on the good ones, you have the crossing route to Hunter Henry where he's got pressure from Von Miller bearing down, still gets it out. This one to Ramondre Stevenson, where he could have gotten it out faster, but decided he wanted to make a play, extends, throws it the back of a defender's head, and obviously dropping it in the bucket to Kayshon Boutte on this deep pass, one of the best throws of his young career. But there were also the times where he may have had a few missed opportunities. Oh, I'm sorry. Also, the Hunter Henry dig, that one was pretty great. And then I can't move on without the dig to Boutte, where he's got immediate pressure, great bits pick up from Antonio Gibson, gets outside the pocket, and is able to complete this absolute beauty to Kayshon Boutte across his body. Which one was this? Oh, then he had a couple quick outs to Demario Douglas. Now, the first one was just short of the marker, didn't convert. Then there was another one where he throws it in the end zone, and Demario Douglas isn't able to catch it. But I also thought there were some missed opportunities. There was the one on the curl to Kendrick Bourne. It was they were a yard short. They wound up having to punt. I think that Drake was a tick late because when you look at his eyes, he wasn't looking left. He was looking in the middle of the field. So it's kind of like bounce, because this is a throw to the sideline. If you hold on to the throw, then it's going to be tougher for you to get it to the ball without the receiver having to come back beyond the hashes. That's exactly what you see. If he throws this earlier, Kendrick Bourne doesn't have to come back to the ball, probably just barely converts. Instead, he ends up a yard short and you punt. Then there was also a play where it felt like a flood concept. Demario Douglas gets open pretty quickly, and Drake May is looking right at him. Maybe even could have held it and seen if Hunter Henry could have got open behind it, but he came off with a look really quickly and checked down to Antonio Gibson, who tried to make a move, ended up getting tackled a yard short, then the Patriots punt. So those were a couple where I thought he could have done more against the blitz and didn't. But in the red zone, I thought there were missed opportunities across the board, right? We talked about it last night. Why did it take so long for them to get into the red zone? You have the one run that was probably a bad call, but I was saying I want to look at the film because I don't know if there were times they could have scored and just didn't capitalize or what have you. Turned out there were a lot of different reasons. One, this first play was an overload blitz where Drake May didn't have an immediate answer. I didn't love this call versus cover zero. He had Demario Douglas open on a whip route where he actually got wide open and smoked his defender, but didn't have time to get the ball off. Also, Vidarian Lowe on a slot blitz against Teron Johnson blocks outside in instead of inside out. So Drake May got pressured pretty much immediately, had no time to find Kendrick Bourne on a backside slant. Another cover zero. This one, the Patriots, I thought this was a better call. He actually had Demario Douglas open immediately because the Bills passed this off the wrong way. I don't think they were expecting this play. Had an easy touchdown. Instead, goes to Kendrick Bourne. Not a bad decision because Bourne's open, but he underthrows the ball. Does get defensive pass interference, but I don't think that was intentional. Then you get another all-out blitz. This is the pop drop where you have the sprint out against the blitz. It's a good call. Decent throw by Drake May. Unfortunately, Pop couldn't complete the process of the catch. Then finally, we have the snap drop where you get the all-out blitz. Like I said, Mike Nwenu misses on the right side. Vidarian Lowe and Layden Robinson get split. Another play where they run cross routes that kind of go overlap, and the defense plays it wrong. You get a wide open Kendrick Bourne, but because of the drop snap and because the blocking wasn't good enough, Drake May just has to fall on it and has no chance to recover. So when you look at the stats, he didn't play very well against the blitz, but it wasn't all his fault. Like I said, there were some missed opportunities. He drops the snap in the red zone. You know, those are things you want to see him correct. But at the same time, there were plays where the blocking could have been better. You could have picked up guys or just played your blocks better. And also at times, receivers not totally doing the right thing potentially. Not completely sure, but, you know, a mixed bag there. Drake May typically is excellent against the blitz, but this was one where I thought maybe partially due to the weather, partially because, you know, it's a tougher environment. I really don't know. I can't explain exactly, but not a perfect day. Something to look out for next week against the Chargers.
I did like that he jumped right on the football when he dropped it. I know that's something that's a little detail that people might be like, oh, you're just trying to give him credit for something. But there are times where guys try and make a little bit too much something out of nothing and either don't go right to pick up the ball or they try and pick it up and make another play on top of it. They end up dropping it again. He was like, you know what? Abort, F it. I'm just jumping on this thing and we're going to live to see another down. So you don't have highlights, right? That was it? Or do you have one?
Oh, no, the highlights were early. It was really just like the early drive was the really good stuff. The Hunter Henry conversion where he saw he had space and let it go immediately. And then the Kayshon Boutte dig where they blitz him up the middle immediately.
The second clip had low lights on it, so I just wanted to make sure that I didn't.
Oh, damn. Yeah, I might have messed up.
You're fine. I'm confused. It's the holidays.
Now the podcast listeners know.
I was going to no. It's all good. I'm losing it. It's Monday. It's Christmas Eve. It's the holiday season.
Oh, my God, it is Christmas Eve.
It really is, Taylor, and that's why. as we outro this podcast, I'm going to let our listeners know that we will be back later on in the week. Probably take 2 days off here on Pat's Daily and then back later Thursday, Friday, somewhere around there. Whether it's a mailbag, whether it's a preview, that's all TBD. But thank you as always, for tuning in, people. We appreciate it. Taylor, any final thoughts here before we get out of here? Not only for the mini break here, but just on the Patriots in general as they go into these last 2 weeks.
Hope they don't eat too much on Christmas. Enjoy your holiday, but you got a game on Saturday, so don't get crazy.
Yeah, that's right. It's Saturday too. I know, Saturday. Oh yeah, so we'll probably
What a
do.
week, man. What a week.
It is a weird week with Christmas, with actually putting together a decent performance, and then you get right back to it. Another carbon copy quarterback game. It was Josh Allen and Drake May, and now it's Justin Herbert and Drake May playing against each other on Saturday. So we'll have you covered here for all of it. Thank you guys again for tuning in to our Patriots Daily, Patriots versus Bills recap. Again, we'll be back later on in the week. Until then, we appreciate you guys as always. We'll talk to you soon. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and we will see you all very soon. Thanks for watching. Oops, where's the outro? Okay, bye.
Thanks for seeing us.